Hi, everyone. I'm McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. And in case you haven't seen enough of me recently, I am excited to be back on here this evening with Samantha Downing and Carolyn Kepnes. I think we're going to have a great conversation in store. The book that is being discussed is For Your Own Good, which is just out today. And I've just put a link in the comments for more information about either author or to order books. So those of you who know the drill, that information is right there. And if you're watching, don't be shy. Make sure to put any questions in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do that in the live chat. If you're watching on Facebook, just here in the comments, and I will get to those in a little bit. We also have a lot more virtual events coming up. Make sure to check our event calendar at murderbooks.com. Or on Facebook, we have, I think, all of our August events listed. We have a pretty cool event coming up that's a little different with our Penguin Random House sales reps recommending their picks for the fall. So make sure to check that out. It's the first week of August. That'll be virtual. And then we're also going to be returning to in-store events, fingers crossed, soon. We've got Lisa Jewell scheduled, William Kent Kruger, Dean Miranda James, and others. So if you're not on our email newsletter, you can sign up on our website to find out all about those exciting things that are happening. Okay, so now to the main attraction, Samantha Downing. How are you this evening?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Congratulations on the new book out today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, we're big fans of yours at Murder by the Book, so I'm glad that you're here and talking with us this evening. I'm going to do your short but sweet bio really quickly, and then we'll bring on Carolyn. Samantha Downing currently lives in New Orleans, where she's furiously typing away at her next thrilling novel. And as I said, For Your Own Good is out today. I also am very excited to have Carolyn Kepnes here. She is my favorite person because we are always excited to have a guest moderator. Makes my life easy. I get to sit back and watch. So Carolyn Kepnes is the author of You, Hidden Bodies, Providence, and numerous short stories. Her work has been translated into a multitude of languages and inspired a television series adaptation of You, currently on Netflix. Kepnes graduated from Brown University and previously worked as a pop culture journalist for Entertainment Weekly and a TV writer for Seventh Heaven and The Secret Life of the American Teenager. She grew up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and now lives in LA, although you are joining us from Massachusetts tonight. And You Love Me is her most recent book. And again, there's information about that in the comments. So I'm going to leave you two to chat. If you have any questions, if there are any issues, just call me back on. And for those of you watching, make sure to put any questions in the comments. Have fun.
Thank you.
Hello. Yay. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Did you stay up late or did you wake up early or both? Like the sub day in the Zoom?
Neither one. I pretty much stay on schedule as much as possible. So I woke up probably a little early, but I did sleep, so that's
good. Yes. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about your wonderful adaptation. Yes. I mean, I've read this before, so I'm still attached to this one, but yeah.
Yes.
This floppy one.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. You have an amazing career. I admire you so much. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, same to you. And can we just jump right into Teddy?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So this is always that moment where I'm like, I don't want to give things away, but this for me, this is the story of Teddy, a teacher who literally thinks he knows what's for everyone's best. And what I like about Teddy is that he's also a very caring teacher. And you take that concept of a teacher who really pays attention to his students and wants the best for them, and then, take it to the next level. So I just want to talk about how you even started out to do this. You've never been a teacher, right?
No, I've never been a teacher. I wanted to create a teacher because they have so much influence over kids and they spend so much time with their students that they are, aside from family, they are the adults that kids spend the most time with, and they can have a real influence on kids. So I was thinking, what happens if one of those teachers is not a good person or even a psychopath? Not in the sexual predator kind of way, which is kind of what a lot of books deal with when in fiction, are teachers who are sexual predators, but a teacher that was an actual psychopath. And how does that influence the kids? Because we don't know someone's a psychopath until they're arrested or they're discovered or they do something horrible and people find out. Like that nice guy that lives next door that's got 10 bodies in the backyard, or Joe from your book.
Yep.
Who, the guy that works at the bookstore or wherever he might work.
Yes. But I love that Teddy, like, he's so close to being good. Like I feel like I'm messed up about this because when I read this, I'm rooting for him in my own sick way, but that's a credit to your writing, because in those moments I'm thinking it would be something to deal with the situation of these kids if you had that instability. So
right.
I'm curious, like, did you know that you wanted to make him an English teacher, and why did you choose like English teacher of all the subjects?
I did know that I wanted to do an English teacher because he talks a lot about books in the book, and he is teaching a variety of books, and that is something that readers can relate to. If he were teaching algebra, who wants to read algebra? Who wants to read my algebra
Yes.
equations? Or history was another option, but I went with English also because I knew the grades and how things were graded was going to be an issue. And when you're dealing with essays, which is what you do in English, as opposed to, say, a math problem, there's a lot more wiggle room in how you can grade someone on an essay. So he would be able to get away with grading people. And I should say, for anybody out there who doesn't know, this book takes place at a private high school called Belmont Academy, and where the kids are wealthy and entitled and privileged, and Teddy is very much not. So there is an immediate class difference between them, and the types of kids that he has to deal with are kids that drive better cars than he does. So and are already very far ahead of him in life in terms of connections and where they're going in life and what have you. So that has a lot to do with it as well. What he thinks of those kind of kids in particular, not just any kids, but the wealthy, privileged ones.
Yes. And I loved this, like, that you brought up this subjectivity there. It was something like grading an essay, because I lived for the scenes with the parents too, when he's in that dynamic, and he's so good at boxing. So I'm curious, like, do you think that like he was this way before he went to work at that school? Or do you think that if he'd gone to, say, like a public school in a different setting, was there any outcome that someone like this, like, is the pathology increased by the surroundings,
It probably is increased by the surroundings, but I think he would have found something either way. even if he ended up in his old high school, he would have found a grievance somewhere that he didn't get to be head of the department or what have you. There would be something, I think. Yeah. Teddy is an underdog. He's an underdog at heart, and he functions as an underdog, and he can't do it any other way.
Yes. And I loved like everything, without wanting to give things away, with the plaque, because that to me was one of those moments that, like, I did feel for him, it was like so clear what's wrong with him and that he cares too much about those objects. But can you talk about like, just like, does it like figuring out the things that would needle him in this way that would drive him over the edge?
Right. So Teddy has been named Teacher of the Year, and he's given a Teacher of the Year plaque. And it is the only thing that hangs on his wall in the classroom. That his walls are bare, and he uses a chalkboard. He doesn't even use a smart board because he refuses. So he has this plaque, and it is very important to him, because it's very important that he has been named Teacher of the Year. Finally has been named Teacher of the Year. And so for him, it is about trying to prove himself to the other people. He feels like he's trying to prove that he's as good, if not better, than them, although he doesn't have their wealth or their status or their pedigree. So for him, it's all a show of like, I am, and he positions himself in the opening chapter so that the person he's talking to can see the plaque behind him on the wall. Just to make sure people can see that. And I think a lot of people do that. We have those kind of things everywhere, things that make people feel important, objects that make people feel more important. And then they want other people to see them, whether they're awards or plaques or whatever it is, the status of something.
And including his wife, like the situation there. I loved that part of the story. I also love that she would be someone who works in a hospital setting. And I'm curious about that too. Like,
yes. So he has a wife that nobody has seen in a while. She's a nurse and named Allison, and nobody. But he, as far as Teddy's concerned, everything's fine. Everything's great, and he talks about her as if she's there, and as if she's still around, even though we don't see her. I wanted her to have a job that was not above his status, because he would never marry someone that was a doctor. Mm-hmm. That would be he would not be able to handle that. No. So it had to be, a teacher and a nurse. It sounds like in Teddy's mind, that's perfect. It just is equal. And so he didn't pick someone that would be a housewife, or someone that didn't have a job at all, or was a receptionist or something, or like an untrained profession. She had to be smart, of course. Oh, yeah. So she's educated and she's a nurse. And so that is an appropriate mate for him.
And yet another missing plaque. And I love the way that with all the characters, you're in so many heads, and we know what's going on with so many people. So what was that like for you to kind of balance all these energies and to know when it's time, now we're going to go with Fallon, how would you go with your gut, or was there like this elaborate homeland map of like tracking?
No, I don't do any maps at all. Nothing like that. It's all gut. It really is. I don't plot my books. I don't outline them. So when I sit down to write, what comes out. And a few things were moved around, but it wasn't too much, because I tell the story as it unfolds in my mind. So then it unfolds in the page the same way that it unfolds to me. So if the story is making sense to me as I tell it, then hopefully it tends to make sense in the final draft, or after revisions and all of that. So there wasn't too much that was changed in terms of moving things around, because it doesn't jump back and forth in time too much. It's linear, and the story moves forward the whole time. Right. But it was fun to see other perspectives and how people are, as opposed to how we're told they are. So Teddy has a very specific opinion of Zach, and Zach is our student point of view in the book. He's a student that Teddy has a problem with. And so we see Teddy's opinion of Zach before we meet Zach. And then we meet Zach, and he may or may not be what Teddy is describing. He could be, depending on who's reading it and what their opinion is. But Teddy has one opinion, and Zach could be something completely different. And the same thing with Sonia, who is another teacher in the book. And Teddy has strong opinions about Sonia. And then we meet Sonia, and you can see for yourself what Sonia is like.
Yes. And Sonia, I just loved to death. I loved her stress and her mind. And I feel like that's something with your writing, like the way it's not in the first person, but it is. Like you're in there, like when she's in that mall, that's what I'm open to. Because this is one half of a page. And can I read it?
Yeah, of course.
It's a good example of like how good you are. Oh God, I have my contacts in. This is one half of a page, and how much you do in such a short amount of time. I don't think I need to do a spoiler alert. It doesn't give away much, but it's just a great example of like this character really being alive. The mall, or what's left of it, is an atrocious place. Sonia walks past the empty retail space, heading into the only decent store left. She has nothing to wear to court, nothing that fits anyway, and that won't do at all because she's going to be on TV. No way around it, as far as she can tell. The trial itself won't be televised, but everyone is filmed walking in and out of the courtrooms. She'll be identified too. Everything will be on the record and public. The idea that she, Sonia Benjamin, a representative of Belmont Academy, is being forced to testify against one of their own is abominable. It makes her want to scream. Instead, She grabs a piece of hard candy out of her bag and shoves it into her mouth. Like, yeah.
I love Sonia. Sonia was fun to write.
Just so much fun. And also so real. And I feel like bringing someone like that into a crisis and letting us be with her as she goes through this crisis. And then the hard candy in a book in which like all food is a little scary because of coffee pods. So I just want to know, like, is there a story behind your relationship with the coffee pods? Like, did you go into a hotel room or a party once or a meeting and like see them all there and just think?
I always disliked the whole coffee pot idea, but it did first come to me when I was in a hotel, and it was one of the first times I walked in and saw one of the single serve coffee machines and the coffee pods sitting there, as opposed to the old style coffee machine where you make the little 4-cup or the 1-cup or whatever it is. And I just thought that I just was thinking somebody could mess with these pods so easy. It could be the person that stayed here last night. It could be anybody you could have. What a brilliant way to kill somebody, to go into a random hotel room and poison a pod and then check out the next day. And then who knows when the pod's going to get dry. I mean, it was, I couldn't resist it. I couldn't.
You never know how long they've been there. And right. Yeah, it was so gratifying to me. I love that when you're reading a book and you're like, yes, like I'm smart not to trust those things. Like this is, yeah. So what about you? Like now, I don't know, have you been traveling much this year at all? Like, have you had the occasion to be presented with a coffee pod and had to make a decision?
No, I haven't. Not yet. No. I think I'm going to start traveling with coffee pods in my bag, yes. In my own pods, or buy them or something. I don't know. I just never liked them. They seemed very wasteful to me. So they're convenient. Very wasteful.
Mm-hmm. Every time I'm used one, I'm like, and this is how we are contributing to our own demise. Like,
right.
And then click and yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's a perfect delivery system for a poison or for something, because you don't inspect every coffee pod carefully, right, before, you would only notice if the top was ripped off, if other than that, or something was falling out the bottom. Otherwise, you probably aren't going to notice anything wrong with them. Just the design of them makes them so perfect.
Oh, yes, ideal. And then with the coffee pods, of course, and bringing up the poison. So how, like, I love that as a method. And I read an interview with you where you talked about how that's more commonly used by women. Mm-hmm. And I'm fascinated by that. So just, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's easier for women to use poison for several reasons. First, it doesn't require any strength whatsoever. You don't need any brute strength to do it like you would if you were going to strangle someone. So it removes that part of the equation. It also, women do it because it's so nonviolent. You're not shooting. There's no blood until someone dies, and you might not even be around to see them when they die because it could happen days later. So it has always just been a preferred method for women as opposed to men. Maybe men like to see the dead body. Maybe they like the violence. Maybe they just feel more comfortable with the violence. I don't know. But poisoning has always been predominantly used by female killers, not entirely. So I liked the idea of a man using it and finding out how convenient it was to use a poison to kill someone, as opposed to a gun or a knife or any of the other 10,000 methods you can use to kill somebody.
Yes, and having his own experiment. Like, yes. That's what I like too, that his tone of like being fascinated at the way things worked out. Like, that was a really good, to me, indication of his mental, like that was where the psychopathy was clear, where it's like, he's not even mad or happy. He's really so analytical. And exactly. Like, in that spirit of like, oh, well, that's what happened. Like, that was too much. This is too little. Like, on we go. So scary.
Exactly. And it also allowed him to get away with it because you can't prove who put the poison in it. So yes. Again, it's so removed, and so many people had access to these things that how could you ever nail down that it was him? You can't. Yes. So.
And nature, I like the symbolism as nature as kind of a force of doom that he's using on his side. And I think that's where I'm probably reading into it. But I like the idea of his estranged wife saving people, and, you know, he's playing God probably in his head in his own way. Like,
Exactly. And they are all plant-based poisons. And that's also very symbolic as well, that they come from his yard, which is overgrown and not cared for. And instead of fixing it, he just closes the curtains so he doesn't have to look at it. I mean, it's all very part of his makeup that he
now when I
just
go for walks,
he avoids it altogether.
Yep, I find when I go for walks now, I'm looking at those houses like, now who are you in there? Like, what is you're in there? Like, yes. And then
Exactly.
I want to talk about, so there's a character, Fallon, and I like her because she's bitter and she has reason to be, but I think it's really hard to write someone bitter and have us kind of be with her and see how the bitterness is good for her and how it's bad. So can you tell us about Fallon and like your thought process there? And
right, Fallon is an ex-student of Teddy's, and she was not one of his favorite. Teddy definitely has his favorite students and his definitely not favorite students, his enemies, and Fallon was one that he did not like. So Fallon was really a chance for us to see the ramifications of what Teddy does to his students, how he really affects their lives, because she's graduated and has gone on, and her life was completely affected by what Teddy did to her as a student, and how he kind of messed up her future with her recommendation letters. So she has a lot of reason to be angry. And she also had the parents aren't real great in this book either. So the parents, you know, bear a lot of responsibility and the pressure they put in their kids. And Fallon definitely had parents like that. So I think it's easy to be sympathetic to how Fallon turned out, because she was doing what she was supposed to do, and it still didn't go the way it was supposed to go. And it was all because of Teddy and her parents, and through not really any fault of her own.
And I got at, like, were your parents like, is this us when they read this?
No, I didn't have that level of pressure, thank God. So, not to go to an Ivy League school or anything. That would be terrible. Definitely to go to college, but it didn't have to be Harvard.
Yes.
So I don't know. You went to Brown though, did you have a lot of pressure to go to a great school or
yeah, no, my parents were like that. I went to a public school, and I feel like I was a natural born geek, so I just kind of liked to do my homework and try for that. But I feel like I was around people in college who had those kinds of parents, and I love to see them in fiction, in real life. Like, it's just fascinating to imagine coming of age and dealing with that kind of pressure. And I like that you showed different examples of it, of like how, you know, the fine line between being supportive and being so controlling and demanding. And that was right. Something that I liked about Zach, like that my dad always said, children grow up in spite of their parents. And what do you think about Zach as a kid? Like, if this were real, or congratulations on the TV show, if the TV show were to go on forever, do you think Zach would ever be a good teacher? Like, of these characters, I guess, who do you think would be a good teacher and who would be a bad teacher?
Oh, I think all the kids have the potential to be good teachers. I guess it just depends on how they develop more, because Courtney and Zach are the two main students in the book, and they're just too young to project, I think, how they'll turn out. I think they've had a lot of good influences and a whole lot of bad influences. So it depends on how that all comes together in their head, I think, and inside of them. Zach, I wanted Zach to be, I was very specific actually with my goal in Zach. He is a rich, white, privileged kid who is good looking, and you want to hate him, but you can't. Yes. And that's what I wanted for Zach, is because he's actually a nice guy, and he's actually just trying his best and doing his work and trying to navigate among all the crazy adults in his life. And he's very self-aware of his privilege, which I think makes a difference. When you're clueless to how privileged you are, you're very unlikable. But he knows how privileged he is, and he uses it to his advantage.
Yes, but I think that's why he was so well paired with Teddy, because I feel like if he had been someone who wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, but like, what could get under Teddy's skin more
Exactly.
than the fact that like Zach like doesn't throw like he doesn't do what you'd think that guy would do in that situation. And I saw Chandler Baker, she compared it to Election, and I just saw that. I was like, yes, like, is that a movie and you love, or a book you love? And like,
love it. I love both.
Yes.
One of my favorite movies. Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. I love dark humor like that. It's my thing. And so absolutely one of my favorites. I love Reese Witherspoon's character in that book or in that movie. And I don't understand people that don't like her, because I think she's fabulous.
Yes.
But she's caving under a whole lot of pressure, and in the end succeeds.
Yep.
And she becomes successful in terms of what she thinks would be success is.
Right. Yes. But yeah, I suddenly, after I saw that she said that, I was like, oh my God, like that's kind of how I saw Zach as Paul, where he's kind of like, you know, you're like, really, you're not an asshole. Like you're
right.
There's genuine there. Like, and it almost makes it more impressive because the way the parents are and all that. And
definitely. Zach is one of those kids where he has that level of confidence that Teddy doesn't have. And just because of how he was raised, and you can see it even when he talks about the first time he met Teddy, Zach's instinct is to walk into a classroom and sit in the dead center of it, because it's the perfect place to sit. You're not too close to the front. You're not too close to the back. You can see out the window. You can see out the door. You can see the teacher. You sit in the exact center of the class. And of course, Teddy has a seating chart, and that is not where Zach is supposed to be, and he has to be told to move. But as soon as Zach gets a chance, he goes right back to the center of the room. And it's a very privileged place to sit. But of course, it's exactly where Zach sits and where he thinks he should sit, because he's that kid.
Yep. Yes. And this is out of the blue, but have you heard of any like parents and their kids reading this together? I would love to hear that, of like.
I have heard of teachers reading. I've had teachers say they absolutely know where Teddy is coming from, and they don't necessarily agree with his methods, of course, but that they absolutely see what his viewpoint of what he thinks of these kids. In fact, someone told me yesterday, they had a friend who taught at a school like this, was a teacher at a school in the Hamptons, I think it was. And the students would threaten to sue if they didn't like what the assignments the teachers were giving.
Oh my God.
And I was just thinking, I didn't even think of that when I was writing the book, but how perfect that these rich kids are saying, you know, I'm going to sue you if I have to read this book by Friday or whatever. Like, that's crazy. So I try to imagine what it would be like to just be a teacher on a regular teacher's salary, and you're not rich, and you have to teach kids like that. Yeah. I can't even imagine. That's where Teddy's coming from.
Right. And who don't deal with the kind of stakes like that. Like, it appears that they deal with the stakes, but on the other hand, they have a level of security. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like it's a different, I don't know.
It's a whole different, I can't imagine what it would be like. It must be so demoralizing. I used to work at a jewelry store. I managed an antique store, but we had antique jewelry, and it was unbelievable to see people come in that were like 25 years old, dropping $10,000 or $20,000 on a piece of jewelry. And you're just, and you start to think, like, what's wrong with me? Like, how is it possible this 25-year-old just dropped 20 grand on a ring? But it starts to get to you, like, I must be failing in life, because what is happening here? And it's a hard thing to be in that kind of, when you're dealing with luxury goods or people that are really rich, like Teddy does in this book. Yeah, especially when you're kind of serving their value system. When I've been in those situations, like, oh, and so this is my role in this machine. And I'm helping. So in that way, I'm lifting up the system. Like, that's where I want to say, Teddy, like, just quit. Like, just go work at another school. Like, they won't even have coffee pots. They probably have some broken old coffee pot. Like. But it's Teddy's mission. Everything he does is for the kids. He believes he is turning them into better people. And that is, He believes it 100%. And I think with psychopaths, and you probably do the same thing because of the characters you write, they have to believe 100%. Like Joe believes 100% in what he's doing. When he doesn't waver in his belief. And
No, yes.
it's the same thing with Teddy. Believes what he is doing is 100% correct, and it is all for the benefit of the kids.
He is doing the hard work that no one else will do. Yes.
That's right.
The brave man.
When people say think of the kids, they don't really mean it. Teddy knows they're lying.
And did you do a lot of research about the poisons in the schools, or was it was it more on a daily basis? Like, oh, I'm curious about this, I'll look that up, like with your process? And
the poisons I did just so I would get the effects right, because I knew if I got that, I had to pick particular plants and particular poisons to cause the correct effect or to kill within a certain amount of time, because a lot of poisons will make you very, very sick before you die. So there's too much of a chance they would find out what it was. So there had to be very specific types that would kill or inadvertently kill the wrong person if they had a condition. So I did a lot of research into that. As far as the school, I have a writing group here in New Orleans, and one of the writers in the group is an ex-teacher. So she would keep me really on point in terms of whether I was, what teachers talk about, what teachers don't. And she particularly loved the character of Sonia. So and how they are. And she was telling me here, there's a school here where if the teachers are have been at the school for 10 years, which is an anniversary in the book that Sonia is having, they get a pin. And the teachers that have the 10-year pins wear them every day at this school. So everybody knows that they had been teachers at that school for 10 years. So it really is a thing, apparently.
Wow. And it's just kind of cultish.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in my school, like I went to a public school and you just knew the teachers that had been there for a while. Like, it wasn't, it's almost making it like they survived something, when you, when you feel the need to like wear it like that, like there's something, kind of unintimate about it, or that is not being just in the life. Yeah, that's
right. Exactly. And I went to a public school too, and it was there. So the private school thing is it's like a mystery. To me, it's like there's like a mystique about it, especially the ones back east, where the old world with the ivy and the really important people have their kids go there, send their kids there, and there's that pressure on them because the kids are an extension of a reflection of the parents. So if you're a super successful human being, you're a senator or a CEO, you need your kid to do well. You don't want him to be right because he's yours, and and so these kids have pressure on them to excel and live up to what their parents expect them to do, which is what Zach experiences.
Yeah, and it's a good distinction there, because it's like, whether or not there is love or not, it's the need involved that makes it like so strange or so specific. And you felt that with Zach, that like, wanting things to be sort of like minus that need. Did you want to go to one of these schools when you were younger?
Oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah.
I fought with my parents about that. Every time I had any problem, I'm like, oh, I want to go to Exeter. Like, I want to go away. And they're like, do you know what it would be like there? And I want to go back in time and give my young self this book, like read it. Like,
Exactly. It just seemed, and they always had those private clubs and private little groups and, all the stuff you see in the movies and the TV shows. And it was like this whole other world happening at the same time. And it was not the high school you were at. It was a whole different thing.
So much
like Gossip Girl or something,
And that's also where I felt for Fallon, because I thought, like this, just to be in that world and to find out that all of it was for nothing. And how all those people would treat you then, like.
Exactly. Yes. Fallon takes a hard fall. So she was fun to write too. They were all fun to write. I think all the characters were at one level. And there are, I think 4 or 5 main ones, 4 or 5 point of view characters.
And and there's going to be a TV show.
There's going to be a TV show on HBO Max. I'm very excited.
Congratulations. Yes.
Yes.
So how involved, do you know how involved you'll be yet? I'm like, oh, when people ask me this, I'm always like, I don't know yet. Like, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know.
Yes.
It just happened. So they have to get a script, and I'm not a script writer. So once they get the script written, I guess they can move forward in doing that. But I think the first thing is to get a script. So
yes,
I don't know. I hope to see it. I hope one day I'll be sitting in my living room watching Teddy and Zach on my TV.
I think you will be, according to the internet. Yes.
And then my head will explode probably.
Have you done any of the play casting in your head, like just for fun?
I definitely don't do any casting while I'm writing. Like, I don't see my characters as actors at all. Do you?
No, I said that when I was like writing my first book with you, like I'd see him in the world. Like if I was watching something, I'd be like, oh, that's Joe. Or sometimes a guy in a coffee shop, I'd be like, oh, that's like him. But I didn't I've never been able to have like a mood board type thing where I'm like picturing them, because I like the sound of things more than like it's just the way my brain works. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's where I have to be yelled at to like have a physical description. I'm like, oh, they look how they look. Like everyone looks, different to everyone to a certain degree because of our perception. And
Exactly. And I don't even see real details when I'm writing. Like I see just more of a figure. And I mean, I don't see facial features. Like it's not that distinct when I'm writing.
Well, yeah. And I like that with reaching in the purse for the candy, because for whatever reason, that to me is the magic of writing and books, that like, when you say she's digging into that purse for the candy, it's like I see that so clearly in a way that I know exactly what she looks like, and I could pick her out of a lineup without getting like the detail, and like the other kind of detail that would paint
exactly.
Yeah, I like that kind of picture. Yes.
I think though, if I were casting it, if I were casting Zach, I would say the younger version, or whoever the newest actor is, that would be like Zac Efron.
Yep.
So super cute, super likable looking, dimples, the whole thing, like that kind of a look. Fallon, the actress from Queen's Gambit.
Oh yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy. Mm-hmm. She has that look about her. She looks like she could kill somebody.
She does.
She has that. She gets that stern look on her face.
Yes.
Teddy is hard. I don't know. Teddy,
I'd say Zac Efron now.
Zac Efron now, really that good looking? I feel
like he can, like, he could act in a way that would make you forget about that.
Yeah.
Not forget, but like, because I think that would make it even like a little more exciting. That like, I mean, it's always interesting to me. It's the way when they cast Joe, I'm like, and look at how good looking he is. And he's still so messed up. It adds like this other dimension.
That's true. That's true.
Because my thing was always, Joe, just because Joe keeps saying he's good looking doesn't mean that he is, and that he imagines everyone wants him, you know? Right. And like, it would be fun to me if Teddy, like on top of all that, was like kind of a looker.
Yeah, it would be. I never thought of him as not good looking, but yeah, just, I wasn't thinking as traditionally lead male. I was thinking Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh yeah,
but that's more of like the nerdy teacher thing.
Right.
So it's not really
sweet. I don't think he could kill anyone.
He what?
He's so sweet. I don't think he could kill anyone.
He's very unassuming. You wouldn't.
Yeah. I would be shocked. Yeah.
Exactly. And I know there's a lot of actors that could do it. I mean, you could probably throw Jake Gyllenhaal in there and he'd do a great job.
Oh yeah, yes. Mm-hmm. Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good.
Yes. And I know we have questions, but I want to like talk real quick about likability, because this book is a great example of like liking to read about people doesn't mean that you want to go hang out with them or that you would trust them to like take care of your place while you're away. And do you think about that when you're like, do I like this person or do I like their situation?
Yeah, I don't think about it at all in terms of, do I want to go out to dinner with this person? I think about it as, is this person compelling?
Yeah.
So I don't care if they're likable. I don't care if you want to be friends with them. Do you want to read their story is what I'm concerned with. And I look at characters the same way when I'm reading or watching or what have you. It doesn't matter if they're likable in terms of my friends, that kind of thing. Just, are they compelling? Do I want to know their story? Do I want to know what they do next?
Yes.
And that's all I think about. I don't try to make them likable or unlikable. If I think someone's too unlikable, that's fine, as long as their story is compelling. I'm not going to. Gillian Flynn had the best quote about this, and she said, "I am not going to make my female character save a puppy just to make you feel better about her." Yeah. So that's how I feel about
on a
it.
billboard somewhere. Yes.
Exactly. So I'm not going to try to make them more likable for you.
Right.
I just want to make them compelling.
Yes, because there's a Jennifer Lopez movie that I always think of where in the first 5 minutes in Monster-in-Law, she gives, like, someone drops a 20, a jerk, she puts it in the tip jar. She's walking dogs, she's painting, like, she does 8 million nice things. And it's like, okay, we get it. Like, but still you cannot like someone, right, or not be interested in them. Like, there's such, yeah.
Exactly. And I think there just has to be something you can possibly relate to. With Teddy, there is a lot to relate to, even if you don't relate to what he does or what actions he takes. There's a lot to relate to him personally in what situation he's in.
Yes. I also loved how he was like torturing the students with the syllabus and with his shifting what they're reading. When you look back, do you think teachers like ever did that to you? And does your friend, did she have anything to say about that in your writers group?
Well, it's probably something I wouldn't have been able to do if they were at a public school, because they have more set syllabuses and criteria that they have to teach in public schools. But yeah, I always wondered how random it was for teachers to do that, and especially Teddy's very careful about not doing the same thing in his classes, so that he doesn't want the kids to talk in between. So all of his English classes are reading a different book at a different time.
Yes.
And they all get assigned different things. And I don't know how many teachers go to that trouble to do that, because it causes more work for them when every class is reading a different book. But Teddy is not about to let his students get away with anything. So.
And that's part of him is the teacher of the year, though. Also, like, that's what I liked about it. That, like, and he's going online to find out about their real lives, and
He does. He knows about their
I spend too much time
lives.
in Joe's head, but I was like, yes, like, look at him, like, caring and trying, like.
He does. He does care. I think in his mind, it's all for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I guess we have questions, but I'm not sure.
Yep. Questions. Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
We do have questions. So I'll just start in on these. I think you've covered this a little, but Samantha, what sparked the inspiration for Your Own Good? A friend said it reminded her of an old movie.
I don't think there was one specific spark, like a movie or a TV show or anything. Just that I wanted to write about a teacher and the effect that teachers have on kids, and then what happens when the teacher's bad. So I try to pick something familiar and then twist it into something that's very wrong. So in My Lovely Wife, it was a nuclear family. He started it was siblings on a road trip. And in this one, I decided to go into a school and deal with teachers and students and parents. So I pick a normal setting and then twist it.
Got it. This one's for both of you guys. Is it a conscious decision to have your main character so flawed, or is that just where the story leads you? And why don't we start with you, Carolyn?
Yeah, it's just what I not relate to as an individual, but it's what compels me as a reader to see what's wrong with someone or what they're struggling with. And so when I sit down to write, like, it's natural, but then I like to push it and push it and push it.
How about you, Samantha?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a conscious decision for me to write about characters that go into those places most people don't. Thankfully, most people don't go there. And, I I try to go off the cliff every time. So probably too much and I have to pull back, but I'm always, let's just go right. Of course somebody's going to die. I mean, let's just go and just jump and deal with it later.
And especially now when we've been living, like increasingly we live in this world where everyone has so many different lives they can lead at once. It's like, how do our brains not imagine the worst? Like, because you get that when people are like, oh, you're being negative, or like there's good in people. Someone yelled at me once, like, you could make stories that fill the world with goodness. I'm like, to me, this does, because it's cathartic. Like, now I won't go into a hotel room and just pick up a coffee pot. Like, I'm learning how to get through this world.
There are teachable moments happening here.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Also for both of you, what does a writing day look like? So do you have any routines, rituals, and when do you write? Let's start with you, Samantha.
I write in the morning. I write every day. Even if I don't use it, I write every day. I write far more than I ever use. Because I don't plot, I write things that get thrown out a lot. And it's total silence. I don't use music. Sometimes I'll use white noise if I have to, but in the quiet. And I can write other places. I can write in public. That's not a problem at all. Just most of it takes place at home in the morning.
How about you?
I guess since the pandemic, I became a morning writer too, where especially with so much strangeness and news, in the morning you have that morning brain. So I just wake up and go with it. And then I find that after a couple of weeks of that, I have a grumpy long night, and around like 1:30 in the morning, because I'm the same way as you, Samantha, like I write that much to get that much, but I'll realize like, oh, this is what it is. And then I become a night writer. So I transition into that and then kind of go back and forth between the two.
Interesting. While we're talking about you, I always like to give our guest moderators a chance to talk about what they're working on or what we're going to see next from you. So what is coming up?
Oh, I am working on the sequel, I guess the fourth book in the series. My first time writing a fourth book in a series. So trying to carry around all the books in my head and try not to plagiarize myself and try not to have the same exact thing. And putting Joe in a new place, a new situation where he has never been before, on terms with people that are very exciting to me and not unrelated to the territory in this book. So that's what I'm doing. And I have a short story in an anthology called Dark Stars that's out in November. So that's something that the book I'm writing now, I don't know, long time.
Awesome.
Samantha, what are you writing right now?
Working on my fourth book. So not a sequel to anything. So I don't have any information on it yet.
Yep.
It's okay. We'll wait. Well, this one's just out today.
Just out.
The demand is always there. We always want to know what's next, even though we just got one. So literally,
I know on that release day when they asked that, I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
can we just enjoy this one for like 24 more hours?
Yeah. Please, just 24 more hours at least.
Okay, I have a question that I always like to ask people. So what books did you read in your formative years? And was there a book that made you know you wanted to be a writer? How about Samantha starts?
In my formative years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I definitely was reading Ramona books and Encyclopedia Brown and Nancy Drew. And then I started reading the thrillers that my family was reading because they were always around the house, and John Grisham and Michael Crichton, and they just seemed to be everywhere. So I think just probably growing up on the thrillers is what made me write those eventually. But a book that made me want to be a writer, I don't think there was just one. I think it had to be a combination of things. And if a book like Gone Girl had not come out, My Lovely Wife would probably not exist, because that's a whole subgenre that was created by that, and the appetite for them is still there. So I think there are a lot of books along the way that led to where I am now.
Sure.
I think we grew up in the same house, because it was like that here, with like the Stephen King everywhere, the John Grisham, like all of that. And I love Ramona so much, like Ramona. And Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That was a book that I talked about a lot, that I'm that was probably when I really like I felt like that strong a connection and liked the idea. It was in my head of like maybe making something that could give someone that kind of connection in a different way. And then when I was like, before I wrote my first book, it's beyond formative years because it's like later in my, adult years, but I read this Lucinda Rosenfeld book that I loved. That was just her going off on, like, the character going off on ex-boyfriends. And something about it was a book that made me like, okay, I want to play like I want to figure out how I play. I liked how she played so much, and I felt that voice was so specific. And sometimes you can read a book like, I will never do this, like I can't do this at all. It's one of those that made me want to, I'm like, here's someone doing exactly her style. And I wanted to figure out my style.
Excellent. We don't have any more questions from the crowd, so I'm just going to say that this was a great discussion, and we're going to end a few minutes early. Thank you to both of you for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. And thanks to Carolyn for doing a guest moderator spot. It's always nice, again, for me especially, because I don't have to do the job. But you did a great job, Samantha. Congratulations on the new book. And hopefully when either of you has a new book out, we'll actually be past this and get to see you in store at some point in the future. You're always welcome. So thanks to those of you who are watching, and I'm going to go ahead and sign us off for the night. Bye.
Thank you so much.